So when I am thinking about what gig I have coming up, there's a couple of things that are important to me, and there's a couple of levels of importance, right? The most important thing for me is that I know the music, and either that I know it because I've played it a bunch before and I'm familiar and I have it relatively memorized, or that I've taken enough good notes that I can read my charts and my notes and play the gig in real time without it ever seeming like I hadn't played it before. I don't want my face to be dug into the page, but I also don't want to miss anything just because I'm playing. You know, I want it to live and breathe as it's supposed to in the moment, but I really don't want I don't want to sacrifice accuracy. So it's both of those things. That's the first thing. The second thing is I want to make sure that I have the right equipment for the gig. To me, it makes sense to bring things that are specific to what I'm doing. That sounds really obvious, but are there any sounds, textures, or specific implements that I need to execute this music? If it's a wedding and I'm playing 30 different songs, 40 different songs, 50 different songs at different styles, I'm going for something that is a broad spectrum of usefulness, right? If I'm playing an original music gig and it's very specific music, what sounds and feels and tones are going to be helpful to execute that music in the most faithful and appropriate way? What electronics do I need to bring? Am I triggering samples? Am I doing playback? All of these things are decisions that I'm making, and of course most of the time there's rehearsal and most of the time there's prep, but I fill in a lot last minute. You have to bridge the gap between something that works for everything, something that's utilitarian, and then something that is specific to the music you're playing. What are the things that I can do to my existing setup to change the sound and the feel from song to song without actually swapping out a drum? One snare drum that I can treat with a big fat snare drum donut or other muffling to create different sounds, to get different things out of it. I'm also thinking about cymbals, the texture of cymbals. Do I need one crash or two crashes? Do I need hi-hats that work primarily closed? Do I need them that have a nice bark when I touch them? All of those things are very important, but it's really not practical for me to swap out drums 95% of the time. So what can I do? Can I play a drum and tune it one way so that it sounds awesome open, sounds great with a snare weight on it, sounds great with a big fat snare drum, sounds great with a drum tortilla, any one of those things that can give me texture and give me muffling and give me tonal changes. And that's just one drum. And we're talking about 4, 5, 6, 7 different sounds from a single drum using an overlay or using muffling. I'm not going to be bringing my a little small 18-inch bass drum most of the time. I'm not going to be bringing a 26-inch bass drum most of the time. I'm going to go with a 20 or a 22 because I want short and punchy, but I want to be able to play off the head and get some tone as well. That's one of a million different examples. This kit that's right here, right now it's set up for some groovier pop stuff that I'm doing. I have 2 crashes only for one tune, but that's not the case for all the tunes. And if I'm recording a song or playing a gig that doesn't require 2 crashes, I'm not going to put it on my drums, because if I put it on my drums, I'm going to hit it. I don't play with 2 rack toms 95% of the time, because if it's on my drums, I'm going to hit it. I love 2 floor toms live, but if I use 2 floor toms in the studio, I'm going to reach for that second floor tom, and it's going to change the parts. Unless I write something specific for that, I don't need it. Even the hardware and pedals that you bring, they matter. If I bring a DW9000 pedal, it's a very bulky pedal. It's a great pedal. It feels really, really smooth. But if I'm going to play a straight-ahead jazz trio gig, cocktail set, that's not going to work for me personally. It's too heavy. It's too much mass. So I'm going to bring a lighter weight pedal, something that's smaller. Same thing with stands and hardware. If I can get away with lighter, I get away with lighter. So that's very practical. Not only are the drums and the cymbals and the muffling and the tuning and the hardware all important, but also, is there anything I can do other than electronics to incorporate the non-drummy stuff in a way that's natural and that brings dynamics to the music? Percussion, shakers, tambourines. This is just a basic assortment of stuff. Index drums, polka percussion, big fat snare drum, upcycle percussion. Those tools and instruments are just as musical as my cymbals. It's something to make that intro sound a little better, something that makes it sound true to the recording. That's really important. Being prepared, totally part one, and then preparing the instruments that I'm using and bringing, and the electronics and the muffling and the cymbals, and those are just as important too. Prepping for a gig is something that deserves more than a couple of minutes of talk, and I'm going to dive into some different specific topics as we do this more. So much of what we do as musicians and as drummers is prepare and get ready for something. get ready for the gig, get ready for the rehearsal, get ready for the session. How we do that, what we choose to spend our time on, how we keep ourselves organized, these are really important. I think that sharing cool grooves and cool licks and fills and techniques is all really important, and I'm going to do a lot of that. But I wanted to speak generally. I think it's important to touch on the things that are super specific, but also the things that are less exciting. I hope that you enjoy it, and please check back for anything more, and I'll get into the details real soon.